It's October 31st. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. My name is Svetlana Cheparenko, and now we will be talking about the situation in the front lines and registration of persons subject to military service. Joining us online is Volodymyr Fitio, Lieutenant Colonel, Head of the Public Relations Service of the Land Forces Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Mr. Volodymyr, good afternoon. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. So let's start a conversation with the issue of reforms of the enlistment offices, how it will improve the quality of the process of selection of people who will be picked to defend our country. So let's start with the main things. We're not talking about the reformation of the enlistment offices, but we're talking about the fulfillment of resolution of the National Security and Defense Council, but rather about the change of the heads of the centers. The project is underway. The heads of the enlistment offices are being appointed. The new people come to those offices who have experience of battle operations, who underwent inspection by relevant anti-corruption agencies, and those appointed head the territorial centers of social support and enlistment. Yes, but how it will influence the quality of operations of the enlistment offices? Well, talking about the operation of the enlistment offices, there is a number of draft laws with regard to their reformation, which are being considered by the parliament. One of such draft laws, which is aimed at improvement of operation of the enlistment offices, is aimed at implementation of the joint database of the people subject to military service, so-called joint register Oberih, and its integration with other government agencies' registers. If that draft law will be voted, this system Oberih will get data from other registers about education, about marital status, specialty professions, and other relevant details. Now, to fill that register, it's 90% full. All the documents will be digitalized, but also the people subject to military service are supposed to show at the enlistment offices to update their details, so they have to physically appear with the copies of relevant paperwork. For example, in case of students, they are supposed to provide a certificate from their educational institution to confirm that they continue study with that educational institution on an annual basis. Also, if a person has a child born to their family, a third child, which makes such people exempt from draft, such people have to provide the documents personally to the enlistment offices. When the documents get digitalized, there will be no such need to show up to the enlistment offices physically. Well, you've mentioned that synchronization is underway. So when will it be finalized? Well, it's not synchronization that happened and is underway. It all depends on the adoption of the relevant draft law. Currently, the only register of the people subject to military service is only being digitalized. It's 90% ready, but it's not yet being synchronized with other databases. It will be filled upon the personal visits of persons subject to military service to the enlistment offices. Well, thank you very much for the clarification. And talking about enlistment of women, what are the categories that fall under mobilization, and what changes since tomorrow? Yeah, the changes took effect adopted by the parliament since the 1st of October, and all the women who work in the area of medicine, like doctors, nurses, cosmetologists, pharmacists, they are supposed to come to their enlistment offices, provide relevant documents, and get registered with the enlistment offices. So what changed for those women? Well, basically nothing changed, because all the women who were undergoing training in the medical educational institutions, they were registered with the enlistment offices one way or another. Now we're talking about the women who either lost their military registration documents or failed to get registered due to certain reasons. So they're supposed to make an appointment with the enlistment offices, take all the paperwork, undergo medical examination, and get registered with the enlistment offices and obtain a military registration document. So here we're only talking about the women who didn't do it before. So registration has started on the 1st of October without lots of women visiting our offices. As I mentioned, women who got medical education, they were registered before, and it was necessary to do it to fulfill the requirement of the law, so that the state understands what is their reserve of capacity in this profession in case of deterioration of situations. So we are only talking about the registration with the offices. We're not talking about the mobilization. For the time being, the women are being only registered with the enlistment offices, and there are currently no restrictions for such women to live abroad. Well, talking about the mobilization of the students, the draft law adoption process is suspended. In this regard, should we expect it to be unfrozen? And what is the situation with drafting of students? Well, talking about the draft law that is being considered by the parliament, let's not touch upon it. Let's talk about it as it is adopted or not. But the students who study, their mobilization is not getting postponed. We have two categories of people. First, 18 to 27 years, it's a draft age, but since there was no order of the president for demobilization and new wave of mobilization, respectively, all the people subject to military service, 27 years and on, fall under mobilization, and the students, for them, their mobilization can be postponed. For example, if a student studies in a higher educational institution and they get either academic vacation or they're being discharged, and at that moment they become 27 years, they really fall under mobilization. But if a student gets discharged at the age of 22 or 21 years, such students don't fall under mobilization at this moment. However, if they have such a desire to join the security and defense forces, any people aged 18 to 27 may show up at enlistment offices and get commissioned to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And I cannot help but asking about the situation in the front lines. Bakhmut and Avdiivka directions are the heaviest now. So what is the situation, and can you report about any success so far? The situation got jeopardized since the beginning of the month. We were watching the activities of the enemy in the Kupiansk area. We were watching the enemy gather their forces and resources. We were preparing to that as well. We were building fortifications. We were pulling up reserves, and at this moment, within the last day, at that area, the enemy inflicted 8 aviation strikes, 16 loitering drones were used against the positions of Ukrainian troops. The enemy inflicted 746 shells, including 156 mortars and 74 cannon artillery shells. And the enemy suffered losses in amount of 112 personnel, 28 units of material, including 5 tanks and 4 armored personnel carriers. We obviously see that this is one of the hottest areas along the front line. The enemy is intending to reoccupy the city of Kupiansk, which is an important logistics center through which the supplies of ammunition and food were going before previous occupation, and the enemy wants to gain some victory before the new year. Currently, the Russian occupation army has no strategic success in this area, and our warriors hold the defense line and repel the enemy attacks on a decent level. Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to the journalists so they ask their questions. Good afternoon, Olena Sapko, Ukrinform. Mr. Volodymyr, I would like to ask you about the students who study abroad. If they have confirmation documents from foreign educational institutions, are they allowed to live abroad? Well, all those documents that they have to submit them to the enlistment office to obtain a permit to live. If they study on a daily form, all those cases are considered by the regional or municipal military administrations, who add all those details to the Shlag system regarding those citizens. Mr. Volodymyr, thank you very much for sharing information about the situation in the front lines and registration of the people subject to draft. Reminding you, joining us was Volodymyr Fitio, Lieutenant Colonel, Head of the Public Relations Service of the Land Forces Command. Ukraine Media Center will continue its operation tomorrow. Thank you for staying tuned.